Hello and welcome to Everyday Oral Surgery. This is your host, Dr. Grant Stucki. I am an oral and maxillofacial surgeon practicing in Denver, Colorado. The goal of this podcast is to connect, learn, and inspire. In this podcast, you'll be hearing from OMS surgeons all over the globe discussing ways to improve the practice of oral and maxillofacial surgery. Most information shared in this podcast will be based on personal experience and opinions, so please supplement what you learn here with approved research studies. Without further ado, please enjoy today's episode. All right, welcome to another episode. Today I'm with Doctors Mediratta and Jeremy Figueroa-Ortiz. Thank you guys for joining me on the podcast today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, maybe we could start with you, Jay. If you could just give us a little bit of history, of your training, your background, and maybe jump into our topic a little bit.
Yeah, my name is Kumar Mediratta, and I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, born, bred, corn-fed. Went to University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and then UNMC for dental school. And then after that, I'm now actually at the Mayo Clinic as a PGY4, and I'm currently in ROAAOMS. I am the District 5 representative.
Awesome. Jeremy, how about you?
So my name is Jeremy Figueroa-Ortiz. I did all of my pre-residency training in Connecticut. So I'm an East Coaster, not much cornbread over there, Jay. And now I'm a fifth year at the University of Michigan, but formerly here as the president of ROAAOMS.
Fantastic. That's great. So we want to talk a little about ROAAOMS on our podcast today. I think it'd be good. We have a lot of resident listeners and a lot of interest there. So maybe we could just start with the basics for those listeners who aren't super familiar. What is ROAAOMS and how does it fit within AAOMS?
I'll take this one, Jay. So, I guess first off, if I had $1 for every time somebody asked me this question, I'd probably have my student loans paid off already. How I typically respond to this is, what is ROAAOMS, or, better yet, is who are we? So I always say we're you. We're the resident org within AAOMS. We solely reflect the voice of OMS residents. We advocate for things like resident needs, mentorship, wellness, any scholarship resources. Our job is to be the voice of both current and future residents. We want everybody to get what they need to do well. And, I always emphasize, if you see us, pull us to the side and let's talk some shop. If you have any ideas, we're always open.
Awesome. What do you think sets ROAAOMS apart from other organizations, Jay?
So, when it comes to ROAAOMS, we're truly resident focused. There is the board of trustees that kind of directs that is the leadership of AAOMS and directs our organization, but we have a seat at all the important meetings, and we're at the forefront of supporting the needs of the residents and, the next generation of surgeons. This includes both at work and in your clinic or in the hospital or personally, because, obviously there's more to life than just what happens at work and at the hospital. We're a group, we're scattered all over the country, so we represent the entire country and all the residents across the country, including Puerto Rico. And, we do quite a bit of networking with all of our constituents in all of our districts. And we try to be as good of listeners as we can and listening to the concerns that people do bring to the table to us, whether that's about student loans, which I'm sure we're going to get into, the future scope of our specialty. Furthermore, we recognize that before residency, we were all dental students. And so, we do engage with the future residents of our specialty as well. At the level of mentorship, usually we try to offer as much support as we can to people interested in our specialty, when it comes to applying, when it comes to studying for the CBSE, which is a very terrible and hard exam. If you're a dental student, that was a really hard exam. So I get what you're going through. For residents, we also try to do what we can to support the transition from residency to practice, which is becoming ever more complex, especially with the introduction of DSOs into the equation. And then, of course, something that we're all familiar with, whether you're a dental student or a resident, we have support and curricula around burnout and managing burnout because, like Jeremy said earlier, there's more life than just what we do, in the office from 9 to 5 or 8 to 5, or if you're a real gunner, 7 to 5. And, I want to kind of say a kudos to AAOMS and that they've been super supportive of the residents and our needs, recognizing, who we are and that we are the future of this specialty. And so we appreciate them for encouraging our voices to grow and be, an advocate for, our portion of the specialty.
Nice. So ROAAOMS is known for getting residents involved in different ways. Can you talk just a little about the subcommittees and how they help drive engagement?
So for those that
Yeah.
don't know, the way I think about this is we essentially break everything down by, what we need, and that's our subcommittees. So we're focused on a bunch of different things. I want everybody to think about advocacy, education, wellness, outreach. The idea is that we can't be everywhere at once, especially since a lot of these meetings meet with AAMS, all around the clock. So that we have EC members assigned to each, essentially to represent residents in our voice. So for example, Dan the Hill, that's something that just happened back in March. This is where a bunch of us go down to DC, we meet with lawmakers, and we talk about things to advocate for, student loans, reimbursements, and, other things that affect us. I always emphasize clinically and financially, and that's kind of the biggest part of being at the table. And the advocacy subcommittee spearheaded this. They made sure not only that we had residents there, especially outside of ROAAMS, but they also advocated so that we can ensure that we have scholarships for people to go. I mean, we know that a lot of residents, especially residents, can be strapped for cash, so it's a hard ask to have people show up with just, finances from their pocket. So that's something that we look out for everybody. And we also have things like the wellness subcommittee, like Jay had mentioned. This subcommittee puts on things for physical, mental wellness. And, these two are just a small glimpse of what we do. As you could imagine, this group is super motivated, so things are just always flowing. The e-board is on it, and, sometimes it could be hard to keep up for sure.
Yeah. If there are residents who want to get involved, how do they go about doing that?
I always say, I mean, the easiest thing is to reach out to your program liaison or, directly one of us, especially those that see us often. But we post most of this on the ROAAMS social media. Whenever we have posts about like Day on the Hill, I mean, not many people will go to the website, the AAMS website or something like that. But you can go to our social media, and oftentimes we have direct links there. And also, we send out a newsletter with all the links to just expedite applying for these things. It saves a lot of people money, and it'll save people some time too. And maybe it gives you a reason to open up that email for those that just kind of hoard it in their inbox.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Nice. And I know ROAAMS focuses on dental students as well. How do how does the program liaison network kind of help educate dental students about OMS?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's five districts within AAMS, and within every district, there's program liaisons, and the program liaisons are contacts at every OMS program. But in addition to that, in every district, there's also obviously dental schools. And so, as a district representative, I part of my job and focus is to reach out to the dental schools within my district and essentially give them presentations on, or basically offer them an introduction to our specialty. And so that's what I've kind of been doing this past year in my first year as a District 5 representative is going to these dental schools, hosting these dental school visits, and just kind of having, I do have a presentation, but in dental speak way too many lectures anyway. So I give a quick lecture, but then I kind of leave it as an open forum to what are your questions about getting into the specialty? What are the necessary steps to having a competitive application? And then what does the specialty look like once you're in it? We go over all of the different possible career paths that you can have, whether that's private practice, whether that's academics, whether that's a hybrid. And so, the goal is to basically be as accessible as possible because the OMS specialty is a fairly competitive specialty and there are barriers to entry. And for those who are willing to overcome them, we want to be there to support them as much as we possibly can. And so, I regularly text dental students who I think, who have taken the initiative to reach out to me and get more information and try to do what I can to guide them and keep them excited about, staying on the path to residency. And so whether that's, just, okay, you've got the CBSE coming up, these are the resources I used, shout out to Anki, or, essentially things that whatever I can do to be a resource to make their lives easier when it comes to applying to residency, that's kind of what I try to do.
Nice. And do you have memorable experience from a dental school visit that you could share with us?
Yeah, I mean, so we're going to probably touch on this a little bit later, but mentorship's obviously a big part of ROAAOMS. And before I joined ROAAOMS, I was actually a underrepresented minority mentor. And that's a great program if any of you are listening and you'd like to join that. But basically, as a resident, you sign up to be a mentor for underrepresented minority dental students. And so, there was one individual who I worked with pretty extensively, and he was a super bright guy. And, there's a lot of matching as number one. And I was just thinking about, I mean, I remember when I matched and like how that day felt, and it just felt amazing to help someone also, feel that on match day. It was pretty rewarding, but that was probably one of the, if you can help out one person, that's pretty much all you really need to keep that fire going inside and stay engaged and help out, the specialty.
Oh, for sure.
Grant, from your end, I mean, with the podcast starting to get up, I'm sure that you've at least de facto almost taken on some mentorship roles as well. How has it
Yeah.
changed for you, from going into private practice, to kind of taking over this platform?
Yeah, I mean, it's been awesome. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about the podcast is the people who, reach out to me after episodes and say, "Oh, hey, I really loved what so and so said, can you put me in touch with them?" Or I've had people say, "Hey, from that one episode you shared, I found a job with so and so," and really connecting a lot of people through this podcast. So that's for sure the most rewarding thing is connecting people socially, giving them opportunities, giving them learning opportunities. Tons of, we try to share kind of raw, everyday, stuff that's going on that maybe you wouldn't read about in a research paper sometimes. And I think people appreciate that. Just the usual grind of oral surgery is often presented here.
Nice.
In regards to, because I know diversity is a big thing with ROAAOMS. What do you see as the next steps in advancing diversity within the specialty?
Hot topic nowadays.
Hmm.
Like I'm getting asked more and more about it, more than ever really in the past. But I mean, to keep it brief, ROAMIS is super committed to, inclusivity, and a big way we do this is through our mentorship programs and also the scholarships that we had mentioned before. It's worth noting that, whether it's sex, gender, background, thought, any diversity really just strengthens what we do. It introduces fresh perspectives, innovation. So it's something that we're really proud to support. Really, kind of bringing it back to our mentorship programs. The way we do it is we match up dental students with residents, mentees, mentor, kind of classic approach. Everybody fills out an application so we can try to pair it as best as possible. And they focus on things like residency application, career development, CBSE. Really, the purpose of it is having a lack of structure so that you could meet the mentee's needs and really just demystify everything about the specialty and residency. I mean, it's such a daunting task. And this came about because we saw a huge need. Sorry, we started this in 2019 because of 2016 data. About half of the dental students were women, but only 12% were OMS grads. So, really, since we started this in 2019, we saw a pretty big jump in matriculation. I can't say that we ran a correlation study on all this, but anecdotally, it seems to have made an impact. And we're getting to the point where we're starting to see some grads now, from the mentorship program, which is, kind of sick. But nonetheless, some data now suggests that we have up to 20%, maybe a little bit higher, but really rating on a release of some more concrete data. But obviously, Dr. Stuckey, the problem isn't resolved by any means. It's still a huge focus for the Board of Trustees and ROAAOMS, and we know that programs like this, are going to fill those gaps, or at least help bridge them.
Nice. Yeah, that's great that ROAAOMS is trying to help out with that. And I also know ROAAOMS does a lot for residents and wellness and kind of focusing on that. Jay, can you talk a little bit about what ROAAOMS does to help residents with wellness?
Yeah, so residency is an absolute grind. And wellness is absolutely one of our top priorities. We recognize that the challenges of residency can lead to burnout. I've had it myself. I think we've all had it on this call. And so what we do is we try to provide resources to support, the mental, physical, and emotional health through, our Instagram, which I'm sure all of you follow. We share wellness tips, advice for managing stress, strategies for maintaining work-life balance, but we also encourage residents to connect with peers and mentors for support. One of the things that I try to do from a wellness perspective is I've had to reframe my idea of work-life balance just for now. And so, trying to make sure I get to the gym when I can, meal prep when I can, and, obviously blocking off time for calling mom and so forth. So I stay in touch with the people that I care about the most. Dr. Stucki, you're obviously well into your career now. How was residency for you? And did you feel like you were able to strike a balance eventually? And like, what did you do to like stay motivated?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure like most of your residencies, it was super long hours, on call and stuff most weekends. And it's tough too when you have, because I had a family, so I had started a
Oh, wow.
residency with 2 kids and I ended with 4 kids. So
Yes.
it was no joke. It was a lot of juggling, of family and resident life. I think fortunately, our chairman and our program was pretty fairly understanding and like, okay if there were family emergencies, to go and take care of that or trying to get us
That
out
was wonderful.
on a reasonable time each day. But I mean, there's no way around it. It was just a tough experience, and my wife
Yeah.
and I had to be on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what I talk about when I'm talking to dental students is, just to also be real about what they're getting into when they're joining residency. It's definitely very different from dental school, and it is a long 4 to 6 years. And that's just the reality of it to become a really terrific, oral and maxillofacial surgeon.
Yep, for sure. And I know you guys and ROAAOMS does a ton with mentorship. What opportunities does ROAAOMS offer for residents to connect with mentors? Maybe you could comment on that one, Jeremy.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it kind of goes back to, what I was talking about with the URM, and then also the Women in OMS mentorship programs. That's super easily accessible with the ROAMS webpage. But I mean, I also don't want people to feel, I guess, confined to that. There's been plenty of times where somebody has reached out to one of us and we've been able to link them up with somebody who we think might, be able to help with their needs or, link them up with somebody at AAOMS that can do the same. I mean, we're a network for a reason, and it kind of just comes back to us being a voice, and we feel needs like that all the time. So we don't want people to think that it's just a paperwork thing. We're going to do the right things to get you to where you need to be, based on what you express to us. And we're gonna use AAMS and ROAAMS's resources to get you there. Yeah.
That's fantastic. In regards to scholarship type stuff, does ROAAMS get involved with helping people get scholarships, or what role do they play there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, Jay.
So obviously, like Jeremy had alluded to earlier, like we're all cash strapped in residency. And so that's a big barrier to attending conferences that we've kind of mentioned that are pretty important to us. And so we use every channel that we can, social media, program liaisons, to let residents know about the opportunities that exist out there. And so our goal is to get residents to conferences and to get them the opportunity to, whether it's AAMS or Day on the Hill, our goal is to get you there and get you involved. And so if you are interested and you want to know how to apply, absolutely reach out to us. If there's an upcoming event or conference that you're interested in, sponsored by AAMS, feel free to reach out to any one of the board members. Check out our social medias because we're always posting updates on, how you can basically get a scholarship to attend those.
Yeah. And
Were you
it's
ever a recipient of one of the scholarships,
I
Dr.
wasn't,
Stuckey?
no, but no,
Did you know about them?
I didn't know much about it in residency. No.
Yeah.
Well, there we go.
That's the thing we want to, that we're always working towards, right? I mean, yeah, we're, within ROIMUS, we're trying to, but we work with AMIS, Osteoscience, OMSPAC. We even get some private scholarships sometimes, and we try to disseminate them as much as possible. Because, I mean, when you're in residency, sometimes you're just under a rock, man, and you
Sure.
have to figure out a way to get things to you.
Yeah, I'll say my first time ever going to Amos, I was actually a junior in residency, and it was only made possible because I got one of the scholarships. And it was actually at that meeting that I met one of the ROAAOMS EC members. At the time, I wasn't part of it, and we got to talking about ROAAOMS, and that's eventually how I got involved in ROAAOMS. So the scholarships were pretty helpful for me for sure.
Nice. So it's got to be pretty cool, working with other residents and other surgeons that kind of share the same passion of leadership and, working in this capacity. Can you talk a little bit about that, maybe Jeremy, on, what's it like working on the executive committee with your peers?
You know, in brief, I mean, it's just, I would say it's just inspiring. I think we do a good job of kind of staying attuned to one another and we fill the needs for each other, I guess, appropriately. Sometimes some of us are super high up and, we're motivated and we're feeling really inspired. And, other times we're not. And, by projecting our own inspiration, we're able to kind of pick each other up around us and I guess get the fuel going again. You being with such a group. I mean, you kind of almost forget about any fatigue that you might have. And you're reminded as to why you're doing these things. There's something that I tell myself, and that I told myself from starting residency. This is my fifth year on ROAAMS. If we don't have a seat at the table, then we don't really have a voice. And in order to change the future, I think we have to be a part of it even now. Again, it affects us clinically, financially, and it affects pretty much every part of our future.
Yep.
Yeah, I would agree with Jeremy. I mean, this specialty is so small, and it seems like everyone knows everyone, and it's really awesome to be part of a small group of people who just want to make this the best possible situation and specialty that it could possibly be. And I just being part of a greater collective and working with people who are all really inspired and excited to just basically do whatever they can and make this the best possible specialty is really really motivating for me. I mean, even like working with Jeremy, like it's been really rewarding in its own, just because he's a super motivated guy. He cares a lot, and that's pretty infectious, and it rubs off on you. And it just it's so if you're someone who actually just really wants to be part of leadership and cares a lot about the specialty and making it what the best that it can be, this is absolutely the place for you to join and get engaged.
And it's a good point in time to, kind of iron out what your role could be in a team. A lot of us go on to open up our own practice or to be a part of a practice and, being in that managerial role, seeing how things work behind the scenes, seeing what legislation we have coming down the pike that's going to impact, how we do things in day-to-day operations. I mean, it's huge. Again, like, it's Amos. There's a lot of private practitioners a part of this, and they have a huge voice. So it's a good exercise.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that transitions us to events like Day on the Hill and, kind of where our specialty's going. Can you talk a little bit about that? Maybe from the things you've seen, where do you see Roe, Amos, and Amos going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I would gladly take that one. So, I mean, Day on the Hill again, we're there. We're at the table. We have a voice here. We're focusing on things like student loan repayments. We have specific bills that we tried to push forward, right? We have like the Ready Act, again, which is around student loans. We have the ELSA, which is around, Kid Everlasting Smiles Act. It's a bill we're trying to support so that, kids with craniofacial differences can get the care that they need. We also have bills around drug shortages that we're supporting. And really, a lot of this is driven by OMS PAC, which is our political action committee.
Hmm.
They keep an eye on, not just things going on in DC, but everything going on locally, especially around anesthesia related care, which is huge, as I'm sure you know as well, Dr. Stucki. There's always kind
Yep.
of magnifying glass over those things. And their ability to keep a pulse on what's going on is insane. Bills are always trying to be introduced on the Hill, and there might be some verbiage that could inadvertently exclude us, and our pack just catches it and they modify it so that we're not elbowed out of the equation. even if it's inadvertent. And, those little successes, I mean, I wish I could, I could list off a ton of little successes like that, that they've really spearheaded. So I think that's something that we're always keeping an eye on. And really down the line, from a ROAAMS perspective, I mean, our goal is to continue to be the voice of residents. Chances are, if you're happy with the status of something, that's because someone has worked for it, and we don't want to give that up. We want to keep expanding our outreach. We want to strengthen our mentorship, scholarships, right? We want to keep advocating for ourselves. For example, we had made the OMS resident guide that I know a lot of residents use and have used in the past, and that was something we put a significant amount of resources in. And even something as simple as events at the annual conference. I mean, everybody likes having that happy hour where we get free food and free drinks, for, pretty much just showing up. So trying to plug in perks like that when we can. We want everybody to have those stronger connections, and we want to make sure that, our future as, surgeons doesn't really get blunted in any way. We're just going to keep evolving with what we need.
So great. What role can current residents play um, in supporting these goals? Any comments on that one, Jay?
Yeah. So, I really love what Jeremy said when he said, if you're happy with, the way things currently are for our specialties, probably because someone did something about it. Because, getting involved is absolutely key as a resident because, in order to maintain the status quo, and if not advance the status quo, getting involved and being a part of pushing the envelope on that is extremely important. And just to go back to the OMS pack thing, it's an incredibly powerful tool for AAOMS. And that was one of the things that I hadn't actually recognized before I joined ROAAOMS, is how important the OMS pack is, but also how important it is for AAOMS, or how important AAOMS is in defending our specialty, especially from a legislative perspective. And I didn't realize that, it was the legislation that we have passed and defended that protects our ability to do certain things in our specialty, specifically, the ability to deliver anesthesia, which is an absolute. And so, if you're a resident, reach out to your program liaison and see how you can get involved, contribute to your social media, attend our conferences, meet us, engage with us. Every resident in the country has something to offer as a member of this specialty. And it's really important that you share with us your ideas, your feedback, so we can continue to improve and meet the needs of our community and our specialty.
Oh, awesome. Well, this has been super informative for me. I think hopefully for a lot of our listeners, a good kind of summary of what's going on with ROAAOMS, how to get involved. Anything else you guys like to share with our listeners?
Yeah. ROAAOMS is here for every resident at every level, whether you're looking for mentorship, wellness resources, ways to get involved, and we're absolutely here to support you. We absolutely care about the specialty. And if you're a dental student considering OMS, absolutely reach out. We'd love to explore this incredible specialty with you as well. Engaging in ROAAOMS, attending conferences, it isn't just about staying informed. It's how we stay connected as a community and as a specialty. And there's only about 7,500 oral surgeons in the U.S., and our field is small, it's close knit, and the conferences and events are where lifelong friendships are formed. I just got back from a weekend hanging out with some EC exec committee members who I hadn't met before, but now they've become really, really good friends. The people you meet now, whether you're at conferences or through mentorship, they're going to be your colleagues one day. They're going to be the people that you collaborate with. They're going to be the friends that you see at events for the rest of your career, at whatever course you're at on the weekends. And so, OMS is just is as it is about relationships as it is advancing our careers. And so that's really what makes it special.
How about you, Jeremy? Any other words?
Well, I mean, he just put the perfect bow on that. He kind of set me up. He set me up on that one. I guess I'll just plug some things that we have coming up. I mean, we have a SNDA conference in July in Missouri, and obviously the national conference is up and coming too, where we do our Disasters of the Masters conference, where we talk. It's pretty much like an M&M, but with legal, where it's super popular every year. And this year, for the first time, we're going to have a dental student session at the annual meeting, and also for residents, we're going to have a Transitions to Practice conference. So I mean, everybody's welcome. come hang out and, ask questions or just watch.
So great. Great resources. Well, good. I appreciate you guys taking time to do this and just provide a little more content and information for our listeners. If you're good with it, I can put your contact info in the show notes. That way, if there's further questions, people could reach out to you.
Yeah,
Is that cool?
for sure.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Grant.
Yeah, let me know if there's anything else you want to discuss in the future. And again, always appreciate to our listeners who reach out, give feedback, make suggestions for future interviewees, topics, all that stuff is super helpful. So thank you, everyone. All right. Thanks, guys. I'll catch you later.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. Good luck today. Have a good day.
Thank
Thanks
you, Dr. Stucki. Appreciate it.
You too. You guys are awesome. Have a good one. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Everyday Oral Surgery. For more information on these podcasts, please visit everydayOralSurgery.com. I love feedback and would be very grateful if you would reach out to me via my email, grantstucki@gmail.com, and let me know what you thought of this episode. Or you can text me at 720-441-6059. Additionally, if you have any topics you'd like to hear about, or if you would like to be a guest on the podcast, please email or text me. I found many of my interviewees through people who have been contacting me and have been listening, and I've gotten so many great ideas for more podcasts, and that's what helps keep the podcast rolling. So I really appreciate you making that extra effort and helping me out with feedback and knowing what to do next on the podcast. Thank you so much.